Listen closely, my friends. There is a truth most people learn too late. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend, and not everyone who stands beside you wants to see you rise. Some people stay close because they benefit from your weakness. Some listen to your plans only so they can understand where to attack. And some will call themselves your friends right up until the moment your success makes them uncomfortable. The Stoics understood this long before social media, popularity, and modern relationships turned trust into a currency. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself to be careful about the people he allowed into his mind, because the quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of the people you give access to. Imagine your mind as a fortress. You would never open its gates to every stranger walking toward it. Yet most people give strangers unlimited access to their emotions, secrets, dreams, and weaknesses simply because those strangers know how to make them feel understood. Then, when betrayal comes, they wonder why they never saw it coming. But this video is not about becoming cold. It is not about hating people, isolating yourself, or believing that everyone is secretly against you. It is about becoming wise enough to recognize the difference between a true friend, a convenient friend, and someone who only stays close while you remain useful. Stoicism does not teach you to fear people. It teaches you to stop being controlled by your attachment to them. Think about how many times you ignored a red flag because you wanted someone to be genuine. How many times did you forgive the same behavior, explain away disrespect, or reveal something deeply personal because you desperately wanted to believe you had finally found someone you could trust? Sometimes the hardest lesson is realizing that your desire for connection can make you blind to someone's character. The ancient Stoics had a different approach. They watched actions instead of promises. They valued character over charm, consistency over words, and self-control over emotional attachment. Seneca wrote extensively about friendship and warned that we should choose our friends carefully because true friendship requires trust, virtue, and mutual respect, not simply familiarity. So in this video, we're going deeper than the simple idea of trust nobody. We are going to uncover 7 Stoic lessons that will teach you how to recognize hidden intentions, protect your peace, stop oversharing, detach from people who constantly disappoint you, and understand why some people only respect you after you stop needing their approval. Because once you learn to see people clearly, betrayal stops being a surprise. And perhaps the most powerful lesson is this: you don't need to become suspicious of everyone. You need to become impossible to manipulate. You can remain kind without being naive. You can love people without becoming dependent on them. You can forgive without giving someone unlimited access to hurt you again. And you can walk away without hatred when someone's presence repeatedly destroys your peace. Because the strongest person in the room is not the one who trusts nobody. It is the one who can trust wisely, love deeply, observe silently, and walk away without losing himself. And by the end of these 7 lessons, you may never look at friendship, loyalty, or trust the same way again. Lesson 1. Stop giving everyone access to you. One of the most dangerous mistakes you can make in life is believing that everyone who smiles at you is standing beside you. Not everyone who listens to you cares about you. Not everyone who asks about your life wants to see you succeed. And not everyone who calls themselves your friend has earned the right to know your plans, your weaknesses, your fears, or the battles you are fighting in silence. The Stoics understood something that most people learn only after being betrayed. Trust should be earned, not automatically given. Seneca warned about the danger of placing your inner life in the hands of people who have not proven themselves worthy of it. Because once you give someone access to your mind, your emotions, and your vulnerabilities, you give them something far more valuable than information. You give them influence over you. Think of your mind as a fortress. A fortress does not hate everyone outside its walls. It simply understands that not everyone deserves entry. The gates are not permanently closed, but they are guarded. You can be kind without being accessible. You can respect people without trusting them completely. You can forgive someone without giving them another opportunity to destroy your peace. Look at how people behave when they have nothing to gain from you. Watch what happens when you say no. Watch how they react when you stop giving them attention, money, favors, or emotional support. Watch whether they celebrate your progress or secretly compete with it. Character reveals itself when there is no reward for pretending. Imagine you tell someone about a goal you are deeply committed to. They smile, encourage you, and tell you they believe in you. But weeks later, you notice that every time you make progress, they make a subtle joke about it. Every achievement becomes something they minimize. Every failure becomes something they remember. That is when you realize sometimes the person standing closest to you is not necessarily standing with you. This is why Stoicism teaches you to observe before you attach. Do not judge people by their words, study their patterns. Words are cheap. Consistency is expensive. Anyone can say, "I'm here for you." Very few people prove it when your success becomes inconvenient for them. And here is the deeper lesson. You do not need to become cold. You need to become discerning. There is a difference between having no heart and having boundaries. The weak person trusts everyone because they fear being alone. The stronger person accepts that solitude is better than surrounding themselves with people who slowly poison their confidence, discipline, and peace. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to remain calm around difficult people rather than allowing their behavior to control his character. That is the real power. Someone can lie to you without turning you into a liar. Someone can betray you without turning you bitter. Someone can disrespect you without convincing you to abandon your own standards. So stop asking, "Does this person like me?" Start asking, "What does this person consistently reveal about their character?" Because friendship is not proven by how loudly someone claims to care. It is proven in silence, in your absence, during your failure, when you succeed, and when there is absolutely nothing they can gain from standing beside you. Protect your peace. Guard your weaknesses. Move slowly with trust. You don't have to assume everyone is your enemy. You simply need to stop assuming everyone is your friend. Lesson 2. Watch what they do when you no longer serve them. One of the clearest ways to discover someone's true character is to stop being useful to them. Stop solving every problem. Stop answering every call immediately. Stop offering favors before they ask. Stop carrying their burdens while they never notice yours. Then watch carefully. Because when the benefits disappear, the performance often disappears with them. The person who only loved your usefulness will slowly lose interest in your presence. This is where many people become confused. They think friendship is measured by how long someone has known them, how many memories they share, or how often they talk. But time alone does not prove loyalty. Familiarity is not character. History is not devotion. Someone can know you for 10 years and still only value what you provide. The Stoics understood that true friendship is connected to virtue and character, not convenience. Imagine a tree standing in summer. Everyone enjoys its shade. People sit beneath it, rest against it, and praise how useful it is. But when winter arrives and the leaves disappear, the crowd leaves with them. The tree did not suddenly become worthless. The season simply revealed who loved the tree and who only loved its shade. People can be the same. Sometimes you don't lose a friend when you stop giving. You simply discover what the relationship was built on. Think about someone who constantly comes to you when they need advice, money, attention, connections, or emotional support. You listen for hours. You show up when they are struggling, but the moment you need them, suddenly they are busy. Suddenly your problems are too heavy. Suddenly their promises become excuses. If this happens once, perhaps life got in the way. But if it becomes a pattern, Stoic wisdom tells you to stop arguing with the evidence. Patterns are evidence. You don't need to interrogate someone to discover who they are. Watch what they repeatedly do. Watch who they become when they don't need anything from you. Watch whether they respect your boundaries when you stop saying yes. Watch whether they still celebrate your existence when you have nothing to offer them. The truth is usually hiding inside repetition. Epictetus taught that we should focus on what is within our control, rather than becoming consumed by what others choose to do. You cannot force someone to be loyal. You cannot negotiate someone into having integrity. You cannot love someone so intensely that they suddenly develop character. And the moment you understand this, you stop wasting your energy trying to convince people to value you. There is also a darker truth. Some people become uncomfortable when you become less available, not because they miss you, but because they miss the access they had to you. They miss the attention. They miss the favors. They miss knowing that whenever they reached out, you would abandon your own priorities to rescue them. When you establish boundaries, they may call you selfish, distant, arrogant, or changed. Sometimes "you've changed" simply means you no longer behave the way I benefited from. Do not rush to defend yourself. Do not write a paragraph explaining your boundaries. Do not beg them to understand. Let your behavior speak. A person who genuinely values you will adjust to healthy boundaries. A person who only valued your usefulness will fight against them. Your boundary becomes a mirror, and people reveal themselves by how they react to what they see. The Stoic does not chase every person who walks away. He observes, he learns, he accepts. Because losing access to someone who only valued your usefulness is not always a loss. Sometimes it is freedom disguised as rejection. And when you stop measuring your worth by how useful you are to other people, something inside you becomes impossible to control. So remember this: don't ask people to prove that they love you. Give them space to reveal whether they do. Stop forcing relationships to survive. Stop carrying connections that only move when you carry them. Let time, distance, boundaries, and circumstances expose what words tried to hide. Because when you stop being useful and someone still chooses your company, still respects your boundaries, still celebrates your victories, and still stands beside you when there is nothing to gain, that is when you begin to understand what real friendship looks like. Lesson 3. Watch how they react to your boundaries. You can learn more about a person's character by telling them no than by telling them yes 100 times. When you always agree, almost everyone appears kind. When you become available to everyone, almost everyone appears to respect you. But the moment you establish a boundary, the illusion begins to disappear. Because a person who genuinely respects you may dislike your decision, but they will still respect your right to make it. This is where many relationships reveal their hidden structure. You say, "I can't do that." Suddenly their tone changes. You stop answering immediately, and they accuse you of becoming distant. You refuse to explain yourself, and they demand an explanation. You choose your priorities, and they call you selfish. Sometimes the person isn't angry because your boundary is wrong. They're angry because your boundary has removed their access to you. The Stoics understood that your life cannot belong to everyone around you. Epictetus repeatedly emphasized the importance of distinguishing between what belongs to you and what belongs to others. Your choices, your judgments, your actions, these are yours. Other people's expectations are not. The moment you begin living according to everyone's demands, you slowly surrender the one thing Stoicism tells you to protect above almost everything else: your ability to govern yourself. Imagine a house with no doors. Anyone can walk inside whenever they want. They can rearrange the furniture, take what they want, make noise while you're sleeping, and leave whenever they're finished. Would you call that hospitality? No. You would call it a house without protection. Your mind can become the same way when you never establish boundaries. Kindness without boundaries eventually becomes self-abandonment. And understand this carefully. Having boundaries does not mean becoming cruel. You don't have to insult people. You don't have to threaten them. You don't have to announce that you're cutting everyone off. Sometimes the strongest boundary is simply a quiet change in behavior. You stop explaining. You stop chasing. You stop volunteering for things that destroy your peace. You stop allowing guilt to make decisions for you. Marcus Aurelius dealt with difficult people constantly, yet he didn't allow their behavior to dictate his own character. That is the Stoic challenge. Someone else's lack of self-control should not become your excuse to lose yours. If someone becomes angry because you said no, remain calm. If someone tries to provoke guilt, remain clear. If someone attempts to punish you for having boundaries, don't retaliate just to prove that you cannot be controlled, because there is a dangerous habit hidden inside people-pleasing. You start believing that being loved requires being endlessly available. You become afraid that if you stop giving, people will leave. So you keep saying yes when you mean no. You keep answering when you need rest. You keep forgiving behavior that should have been corrected. Eventually, you don't even know whether people love you or simply love the version of you that never disappoints them. But here's the paradox. The right people don't need you to destroy yourself to keep them. They may disagree with your boundaries. They may miss the old version of you, but they won't demand that you betray yourself just to make them comfortable. Their respect survives your independence. So don't use boundaries as a weapon. Use them as a filter. Let them reveal who can respect your autonomy and who only respected your availability. You don't need to accuse anyone. You don't need to expose anyone. Just stop making exceptions for behavior that repeatedly violates your peace. And when someone walks away because you finally learned to say no, don't immediately assume you lost a friend. Sometimes you lost an expectation. Sometimes you lost a role you were forced to play. Sometimes you lost someone who loved what you did for them more than who you were. The Stoic doesn't build walls around his heart. He builds gates, and he decides who earns the key. Lesson 4. Watch how they react to your success. Failure can reveal who feels sorry for you. Success reveals who genuinely wants you to rise. When you are struggling, some people will happily stand beside you because your weakness makes them feel safe. But when you become disciplined, confident, successful, or simply happier than before, the relationship can suddenly change. Their congratulations become quieter, their jokes become sharper. Their support begins to carry a strange bitterness, and you start noticing something you were too hopeful to see before. Some people don't want you to fail, they just don't want you to rise higher than them. This is one of the hardest truths to accept because jealousy rarely announces itself honestly. Nobody walks into your life and says, "I am threatened by your growth." Instead, it hides behind sarcasm, subtle criticism, backhanded compliments, constant comparison, or sudden indifference. You tell them about an achievement, and instead of celebrating it, they immediately tell you why it isn't that impressive. You share a goal, and they remind you of every reason you might fail. You improve yourself, and somehow they become uncomfortable with the new version of you. Imagine two people climbing the same mountain. At the beginning, both are struggling, both are exhausted, and both understand the pain. They encourage each other because they are at the same height, but one begins climbing faster. Suddenly, the other stops looking at the summit and starts looking sideways. The mountain never became the problem. Comparison did. And this is why your growth can expose emotions in people that your struggle never revealed. The Stoics understood that another person's position does not diminish yours. Marcus Aurelius did not need to become smaller so someone else could feel larger. He focused on his own character, his own duties, and his own conduct. That is the Stoic response to comparison. Don't spend your life looking sideways at another person's progress. Your task is not to prove that you are better than them. Your task is to become better than the person you were yesterday. But there is an important distinction. Not every criticism is jealousy. Not every disagreement is betrayal. A genuine friend may challenge you because they care about your character more than your ego. They may tell you something you don't want to hear because they want to prevent you from making a mistake. The difference is intention and pattern. A true friend can correct you without needing to diminish you. A jealous person often needs your success to become smaller so they can feel bigger. Watch what happens when you stop needing their approval. Watch what happens when you improve your appearance, your finances, your discipline, your confidence, or your mindset. Watch whether they become inspired by your progress or irritated by it. And especially watch what happens when your success gives you choices you didn't have before. Some people are comfortable when you need them. They become uncomfortable when you no longer do. There is a powerful Stoic lesson hidden here. Never make yourself smaller to preserve someone else's comfort. If your growth is honest, disciplined, and ethical, you do not owe anyone an apology for becoming stronger. You don't need to announce your progress. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to fight with people who misunderstand it. Simply keep walking. Because sometimes the person who disappears when you succeed was never attached to your potential. They were attached to the version of you they could compare themselves against. And when you changed, the relationship became uncomfortable because the old balance disappeared. So don't become paranoid. Don't start seeing enemies everywhere. Observe without becoming bitter. Celebrate your progress quietly. Share less with people who repeatedly turn your victories into competitions. And remember that genuine friendship does not require you to remain weak so someone else can remain comfortable. The Stoic does not ask, "Why can't they be happy for me?" He asks a more powerful question. Why does their reaction have the power to change how I feel about my own progress? Once you stop needing everyone to celebrate your growth, you become free to grow without permission. And sometimes the greatest proof that you've outgrown a relationship is not that you hate the person anymore. It's that their opinion no longer has the power to stop you. Lesson 5. Never confuse kindness with loyalty. Some people are incredibly good at making you feel valued without ever truly valuing you. They remember your birthday, laugh at your jokes, listen to your stories, and tell you exactly what you want to hear. You begin to think, this person would never betray me. But kindness can be performed. Loyalty cannot. The real test of a person is not how warm they are when everything is easy. It is what they do when being loyal becomes difficult. Think about a bridge. Anyone can stand on it when the weather is calm and the river is quiet. But you discover the strength of the bridge when the storm arrives, the water rises, and the weight becomes unbearable. Relationships are the same. Easy circumstances create companionship. Difficult circumstances reveal character. Someone can be beside you for years and still disappear. The moment standing beside you becomes inconvenient. This is why the Stoics placed such enormous value on character. Seneca's writings on friendship make an important distinction between genuine friendship and relationships built around advantage. A person who stays because you provide something is not necessarily your friend. They may simply be attached to the benefit of having you in their life. Remove the benefit, and sometimes the relationship collapses with it. So pay attention to what happens when you are no longer entertaining, when you're struggling instead of succeeding, when you need support instead of providing it, when you disagree instead of agreeing, when you become honest instead of agreeable. These moments are more revealing than 1,000 compliments. Anyone can love the version of you that makes their life easier. The rare person respects you even when you cannot give them anything. There is another test most people overlook: how they speak about people who aren't present. If someone constantly exposes other people's secrets to you, mocks their friends behind their backs, and tells you things they promised others they would never reveal, don't assume you're special. You may simply be next in line. A person who casually betrays someone else's trust is showing you what they may eventually do with yours. Imagine someone handing you a beautiful glass and telling you, "This is priceless." Then, in front of you, they throw another person's glass against the wall without hesitation. Would you confidently hand them yours? Probably not. Their treatment of someone else just gave you information about how they treat trust. Character doesn't suddenly appear when you become the target. It was already there. But don't become obsessed with testing everyone. You don't need secret experiments or traps. Simply observe. Let people reveal themselves naturally. Time is one of the greatest truth detectors in existence. Pretending requires energy. Consistency requires character. Eventually the difference becomes visible. And if someone disappoints you, don't immediately turn that disappointment into hatred. That's another trap. The Stoic doesn't say, "Everyone is terrible." He says, "I have learned something about this person." That distinction matters. One turns you bitter, the other makes you wiser. Because the goal is not to walk through life with a locked heart. The goal is to stop handing the keys to people who have never demonstrated that they know how to protect what is inside. Be kind but observe. Be generous but have boundaries. Be forgiving but remember patterns. Give trust but let time confirm it. And when someone finally proves that their loyalty is real, don't take it for granted. Genuine friendship is rare precisely because genuine character is rare. You don't need hundreds of people around you. You need a few people whose character remains solid when the circumstances around them change. The Stoic doesn't measure friendship by how many people stand beside him when the sun is shining. He remembers who remained when the storm arrived. Lesson 6. Stop telling people everything about you. There is a dangerous habit that feels like connection, but can quietly become self-destruction. Telling people everything. Your fears, your insecurities, your plans, your financial situation, your relationship problems, the things that hurt you, the things you secretly want, and the weaknesses you are still trying to overcome. You reveal them because you want to feel understood. But not everyone who understands your weakness will protect it. Some people will memorize the doors to your fortress simply so they know exactly where to knock when they want to hurt you. The Stoics understood the value of controlling what you reveal. They were not obsessed with explaining themselves to everyone because they understood a simple principle: your inner world is valuable and access to it should be earned. Epictetus repeatedly directed attention toward what belongs within your control, your judgments, choices, and conduct. That also means learning when silence is wiser than explanation. You don't have to turn every thought into an announcement or every struggle into a public confession. Imagine carrying a treasure through a crowded city. Would you walk through the streets holding the box open, showing every stranger exactly what is inside? Of course not. You would protect it. You would understand that not everyone looking at the treasure has good intentions. Your private life is a kind of treasure. Your dreams, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities are not worthless simply because you are willing to share them. They become powerful when you know who has earned the right to receive them. And notice something about people. When you reveal a weakness, you are not only giving information, you are giving someone a map. They now know what makes you insecure. They know what rejection hurts you. They know what approval you crave. They know which subject makes you angry and which fear keeps you awake at night. A trustworthy person protects that map. A manipulative person studies it. This doesn't mean you should become secretive or emotionally unavailable. That's not strength. Strength is knowing the difference between vulnerability and oversharing. Vulnerability with the right person can build deep trust. Vulnerability with the wrong person can become ammunition. The mistake is not opening your heart. The mistake is opening it before you know whether the person standing in front of you has the character to hold what you give them. Look at your own life. Have you ever told someone a dream too early, only to hear them mock it later? Have you ever shared something deeply personal during a moment of trust, only to discover that the same information somehow appeared in another conversation? Have you ever explained your weakness to someone believing they cared, only to have them use it against you during an argument? That pain teaches a lesson if you are willing to learn it. Not everyone deserves the unedited version of you. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to announce every thought he had to the world. His private discipline mattered more than public performance. That is deeply Stoic. You don't need everyone to know what you're building. You don't need everyone to know what you're struggling with. You don't need everyone to know what you plan to become. Sometimes silence protects a dream long enough for it to become reality. There is also another reason to speak less. The more you explain yourself, the more dependent you become on being understood. Someone misunderstands you, and suddenly you feel compelled to write paragraphs. Someone questions your decision, and you feel obligated to defend it. Someone doesn't approve, and you start doubting yourself. But a person who has developed inner authority can say, "You don't have to understand my decision for me to make it." Your life is not a courtroom where everyone around you gets to cross-examine your choices. So become selective. Let people earn deeper access through consistency. Watch how they handle small secrets before you give them something important. Watch how they respond to your vulnerability. Watch whether they protect information that isn't theirs to share. Trust should grow like a tree, not explode like fireworks, slowly, quietly, rooted in evidence. And remember this, silence is not weakness when it comes from self-control. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is nothing. Sometimes protecting your peace means refusing to explain what does not need explanation. Sometimes keeping your plans private is not fear, it is discipline. Because when you stop giving everyone access to your inner world, something changes. You become harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, and harder to control. You stop needing everyone to understand you. You begin to understand yourself, and that is a kind of freedom no betrayal can take away. Lesson 7. Watch who they become when you stop chasing them. One of the clearest tests of any relationship is distance. Not dramatic distance, not revenge. Just the quiet decision to stop chasing, stop initiating every conversation, stop repairing every disagreement, and stop carrying a relationship entirely by yourself. Because when you stop pulling the rope, you finally discover whether the other person was holding the other end, or whether you were the only one holding it all along. There are people who feel close to you only because you constantly move toward them. You text first, you apologize first, you check on them first, you make plans first, you forgive first, you keep the conversation alive even when they give you almost nothing in return. And because you are always closing the distance, you never get to see what happens when you stop. Sometimes silence reveals more than confrontation ever could. Think of a fire that you have been feeding every night. You bring the wood, protect the flame, and keep it alive through every storm. Then, one day, you stop adding fuel. If the fire disappears immediately, you didn't destroy it. You discovered that it was never capable of sustaining itself. Some relationships are exactly like that. They survive because one person keeps supplying all the energy. The Stoic does not chase what repeatedly chooses to walk away. This doesn't mean he becomes arrogant or refuses reconciliation. It means he understands the difference between valuing someone and depending on their presence for his peace. You can miss someone without chasing them. You can love someone without begging them to stay. You can care about a relationship while accepting that you cannot maintain it alone. Epictetus taught that we should not make ourselves slaves to things outside our control. Other people's attention is outside your control. Their loyalty is outside your control. Their willingness to communicate is outside your control. Their decision to leave is outside your control. But your dignity is still yours. And once you understand that, you stop trying to force people into positions they have already chosen not to occupy. Pay attention to what happens when you become less available. Do they check on you? Do they notice your absence? Do they ask whether something is wrong? Do they make an effort to reconnect? Or does everything simply disappear? You don't need to accuse them. You don't need to send an emotional message demanding answers. Their effort, or lack of it, is already an answer. This is especially important when someone has become accustomed to your constant attention. The moment you stop giving it, they may suddenly accuse you of changing. But perhaps you did change. Perhaps you finally realized that constantly proving your value was exhausting you. Perhaps you stopped confusing pursuit with friendship. And here's where you must be careful. Don't turn this lesson into a manipulation tactic. Don't disappear just to see who chases you. Don't ignore people to test their loyalty. Don't play emotional games. That is not Stoicism. That is insecurity wearing a mask of strength. Instead, simply stop forcing what is not naturally mutual. Let the relationship breathe. Let reality reveal itself. Marcus Aurelius understood that people will act according to their own nature. Your responsibility is not to control their behavior, but to control your response to it. If someone chooses distance, you don't have to become bitter. If someone chooses silence, you don't have to become desperate. If someone chooses to leave, you don't have to destroy yourself trying to make them stay. Because sometimes the hardest truth is also the most freeing. You can care deeply about someone and still accept that they are not meant to have unlimited access to your life. So stop chasing people who only remember you when you remind them that you exist. Stop carrying relationships that collapse the moment you stop carrying them. Stop begging for effort that should have been freely given. Let people choose. Let them reveal themselves. And if they walk away when you stop chasing them, don't immediately ask, "What did I do wrong?" Sometimes the better question is, why was I running after someone who was perfectly comfortable walking away from me? The Stoic doesn't chase every disappearing shadow. He turns toward the path ahead and keeps walking. After these 7 lessons, remember this: not everyone deserves the same access to your life. Don't trust blindly. Don't hate everyone either. Watch actions, patterns, consistency, and how people react to your boundaries and success. You can be kind without being naive. You can forgive without giving someone the same access again. And you can walk away without becoming bitter. The Stoics understood one simple truth. You cannot control people's character, but you can control who you allow close to you. So protect your peace, protect your self-respect, choose your circle wisely. And if someone betrays you, don't lose yourself trying to understand them. Take the lesson, keep your dignity, move forward. Because losing someone who never truly valued you is painful, but losing yourself just to keep them is far more expensive.